Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. This would be the Jeff Cameron Show, right here on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Thanks for tuning to it. Good Monday, everybody. Glorious day outside. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for tuning in. What a weekend. What a week we've got ahead of us. This is fun. Great time of year. As a sports fan and as somebody in Tallahassee, you got to love this, man. Weather perfect. Topics du jour. They're everywhere. Time is right. We're online, ESPNTallahassee.com. That's where you're going to listen live via the streaming free. Always don't miss anything. If you do go back, get caught up at your leisure. We'll post it all 3 hours to Apple Podcasts and anywhere you get podcasts. On Twitter, it's at Jay Cameron Show. Hello, YouTubers. Tonight, the national championship game. If you want, Tom, we can crescendo as we've done over the years because it's just another reminder of how much we love this event and what a game it was on Saturday night to lead us to this showdown that I think a lot of us outside of Florida State could have made it, have been wanting to see. So, for many years, we debated the best version of this particular song. And I always go back to the Teddy Pendergrass. But, you know, over the years, it's been done and redone a million times over.
It's always been Pendergrass for any montage that was ever done here.
Has to be.
That's the rule.
Teddy still rules today.
It's on my contract.
Yeah, I mean, when they had Luther Vandross come in, you thought, oh, well, this is going to be competitive. Luther's going to come in here and do some things with this. And you went, no, still Teddy. Still Teddy. My man, Teddy Pendergrass. Nonetheless, how many times have you waited for your team's moment in that montage? If you're a fan of the NCAA tournament, you love March Madness, and you've watched it, no doubt, let's say for decades, then you remember all those moments. You're like, oh, that was that great play. Oh, there's our guy. There we are. Then there were many years where we weren't there. We're like, damn, we're not there. At least we'll be in this montage. Maybe even if only for a second, we'll be in it.
Hey, man, Sweet 16 gets you at least 2 or 3 clips,
I think
right?
you get 2. I think you might get 2. We'll see very late tonight as they tip at 9:20. Tell me you were there watching. I know you were, Tom, but I'm talking to the rest of you on Saturday night to watch. Really, I mean, that whole game was in particularly between two teams all time, like, impressive. But I would say the last 5 minutes of that game on into the overtime featured many gasp-worthy, did you just see that moments. I was absolutely blown away. And I can tell, I do this all the time now where I make fun of myself for getting older. When I see kids rise to the occasion in moments that are as pressure-packed as that, I mean, it doesn't get more pressure-packed than that on a national stage with a game on the line. And both teams hitting big shot after big shot after big shot. I get proud of them, Tom, like a father. It's ridiculous. I'm like, oh, I'm proud of you, young man, stepping into that shot. I'm not talking about the bank, which is a great play, especially for a freshman. But I'm talking about the amount of plays made by both of these teams with the game. I mean, what would be game-changing plays responded to with game-changing plays, which was then responded to by game-changing plays. You're just watching a heavyweight fight. It was absolutely riveting Saturday night.
Championship-level Jenga, man. You're just like, there's no way it could be done again. They did it again. The game continues.
Look at that guy. That's well done.
What balance.
Yeah, I'm telling you, absolutely as good as college basketball gets. The sport, the tournament can be both. Not only, it could be something to celebrate, it could be riveting, as I just described. It can be maddening, too. I mean, again, the officiating in this tournament has been terrible, but college basketball officiating in general is terrible. And when you watch the tournament, you're reminded of that because the the games take on a feel based on how officials are going to call it that particular night. And so there's no real fluidity when you're watching back-to-back games. So in this tournament, that's when you do that. On a normal Tuesday night or whatever, you're just watching your team play and you can gripe or whatever, but you have nothing to compare it to. When you watch in succession a series of college basketball games and you note the stark differences between the way one officiating crew and another officiating crew calls the game and how that dictates terms, you grow a little frustrated. College basketball's got a problem with that. I'll expound on that more later, but they do have a problem with that.
The good thing was this game served as redemption. It served as redemption for the Saturday because you watch the first one and there's really nothing to watch after 10 minutes or so. It's a blood sacrifice game, and I thought, oh, God, here we go, because UCLA is going to take the court with a Gonzaga team that's just as game, and the theme of the night is going to be, this is the undercard, who cares, blood sacrifice Saturday, because we're going to get the matchup we're
looking for, yeah.
And in the midst of thinking that, the next thing I know, wait a minute, this UCLA-Gonzaga game is actually good. Let's see if it's good for another 4 minutes. Oh, it's still good. Oh, we got to halftime. Oh, my God. I got to figure out some stuff to do for 15 minutes because I need to be back here and ready to go, punctual for the second half. And it kept delivering and delivering and delivering. It was if you lined up those teams, 10 nights in a row, and you lined up those games the same way, UCLA and Gonzaga would not be the better of the two games. But maybe once out of 10 nights?
Right.
But on this night, it was an epic game, an all-time game.
Well, it's an illustration of how little you know when you get into tournaments and how things can really change. Now, one thing remains a truism, that the cream always rises to the top, and that invariably once you get to the finals, you're going to get to usually at least one of the best teams that was unanimously thought to be throughout the course of a season. Most of the time, you get another team that people predicted to go to the Final Four, and that's exactly what we got in the form of Gonzaga and Baylor. Everybody has wanted this game. I've wanted this game. If you watch these two teams intermittently throughout the season, there have been moments where you thought, that's the best team. No, that's the best team. No, that's the best team. And you were usually talking about those two teams. So we did get this matchup. It's just that UCLA crashed the party as an 11. Otherwise, you had ones and twos. In that UCLA team gave you no indication at all over the course of the season that they would become the team they became in this tournament. And then where they graduated to offensively was insane, because that, defensively they were good all year, but offensively they really struggled. They hit shot after shot after shot. Let's hope that tonight somehow lives up to some semblance of what we saw on Saturday night, because that was as good as college basketball gets, and it's the kind of thing we'll always remember. Always.
A total outlier performance from UCLA offensively, but I just had to smile. It may be that a friend of yours in the first half was waiting and waiting and waiting to, as a stock person would say, buy the dip, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe that friend of yours got Gonzaga -7, and they're like, well, what value here? Incredible value, because the Zags are about to go crazy. It never happened.
Never happened, Tom.
Maybe that person was happy when they got to overtime because they could maybe find a cheapie in 5 minutes.
No.
It never happened, but it's okay. That friend was okay because the game was so good that who the hell cares?
Oh, you couldn't. It was that good. It was so fun to watch. And, what happens is you go into tonight's game, and I did this as soon as the other game ended. I thought, oh, man. Well, I don't know. I don't know that we're going to see anything as good as we just saw, and maybe, if anything, Gonzaga will dip in terms of overall efficiency. I mean, they can't play that well again. They had 25 assists on 37 field goals and made 30 of 42 two-point shots. 71% is what they shot. That's how good Gonzaga was in that game, and they barely won in overtime on a bank. That's also how good UCLA was in this game. It was insane. Time and again. But you could look at it the other way. I saw Chris Felica tweeted this out. I think he might be right about this. As I pondered, what that would do to Gonzaga, would this embolden them even more than they already are, or would this deflate them and make them realize they're mortal, because they're undefeated, obviously, and they just had a team that barely got into the tournament, pushed them to the brink? I think it emboldens them. They got every team that's ever gone on one of these historic runs to win a national championship, especially one like this where so few far between that have ever done it undefeated, gets pushed at some point. There's a game. And if you think back on it, some don't survive, like Duke beating UNLV. I mean, like there are teams that looked like they were destined to finish this thing off. They get punched in the mouth. They get pushed. Things get tight in the last minute. All that's on the line, all that is expected of them, crushes them. They become frozen. They responded to a once-in-a-lifetime game from UCLA where guys are doing things outside of their comfort zone time and again, the center hitting all those shots and they kept coming, and they kept having guys make big plays. I mean, Timmy was incredible in this game. Yeah. Obviously, Suggs, you look at the play, the block, everything else. I mean, it's unreal.
The thing I love about games like this, and it's easy for me to say when I don't have a real dog in the fight at all, is I like when one team wins and the other one didn't necessarily
lose. Right, somebody won.
Yeah. Because, I watched, and it took about a half an hour before I had to stop myself from looking for radio calls and clips and reaction videos. I'm like, go to bed, man. You could be here for hours.
Oh, yeah.
I had Back to the Future Part 3 on in the background to kind of calm me down. But I'm seeing, before I flip the channel, I see the UCLA players walking down the hallway, and they're in tears, and I'm like,
I felt for them.
I'm sure I would be too. But there would be an immense sense of pride that if you're going to lose like that on a third court buzzer beater, right, in overtime.
Yeah, against an undefeated team.
You did nothing
number
wrong.
One seed,
I can know I did nothing wrong. There was nothing bad about what I did. Like, that performance is epic. It's just that there was another made basket on the other end, and it wasn't even a likely one. So you don't really have any reason to hang your head. You didn't blow anything, right? So...
yeah, you stare off in the distance, the Phil Collins Miami Vice. That's all it is, man. You're staring off Don Johnson out over the ocean. Can you believe that just happened? That son of a bitch hit a bank at the buzzer to go to the finals. Like, this happens in a regular season every now and again. You're watching highlights. You're like, oh, how about that? But it's never in the Final Four.
Right. Like, I feel like you may want to weep if you choke, if you let one go and you're watching it happen and the mental battle that's going on.
If you're calling Montgomery with a 7-iron in your hand with a chance to win the U.S. Open in the middle of the fairway and you somehow tow it dead right into the woods, yeah, that's a toughie.
Right. There may be a tear or two. But if you're DeMarco and Tiger Woods chips in on 16, you're like, oh, I mean, what am I supposed to do with this?
Maybe cry because you're Chris DeMarco and you're never going to have another chance. That's a tough one. Monty probably thought there'll be other days.
Yeah.
Little did he know there were none.
It was unfortunate for DeMarco, who could have brought a real prize home to the Gator golf program.
But alas, he could not. I will say this, and I don't do it to disparage or besmirch those that do cry upon losing games. I've never done that. I've never felt even compelled to cry after losing a game, no matter how big a game it was, state playoffs or otherwise.
How about a win?
No, I've never cried after a win either. I've never cried after a sporting event for any reason. I've come closer as a fan to crying during a sporting event out of joy than I ever did as a player. As a player, I never did. I'll grant you, I never played on that kind of a stage. So
what if you won the state? You think you would have?
No, not at all. No, because I don't.
Too young?
I think too young is a good way to say it. Yeah, that might be right, because I didn't have any perspective on what it meant and what it would mean years later or anything like that. I mean, I've been bitterly disappointed. I've certainly been, sullen, but I don't ever recall feeling compelled to cry. I remember seeing kids cry and thinking that's odd, and I never made fun of them or anything like that, but just, there's kids in your neighborhood that you grow up playing with that cry when things don't go their way, and you're like, get your bitch ass home. You never really even worried about it, right? But I mean, like, for the most part, it's never occurred. I'm always blown away by that. Like, now as a dad, I could see me crying if my son's team lost or something like that.
That would be funny, though, if one of your son's friends' dads is listening right now. And they're like, ooh, that's what Mr. Cameron thinks when my son comes home crying from a pickup game.
Yeah, I would. I do think that. Yeah. Tell him to get it together.
He's looking out his little screen door, sipping on his coffee.
Like,
get out of here.
I'm like, get it together,
Come
kid.
on now.
It's a pickup game. What are we doing?
Yes, there were those kids that
Yeah.
always cried.
No, I think if you leave it all out there, man, that's all you can do is leave it all out there. You've given everything you got, and it either goes your way or it doesn't. It can be, I mean, it might stick in your craw for a long time, maybe the rest of your life. You cry about it, I mean.
It's just, it's such a unique position to be in, though. You're an 11, and you played a perfect game, and you lost on a weird shot. Like, I don't know. I suppose you could be angry and bitter about it, but could you really be bitter about it? What would you be bitter about? The charge call? Because it was a legit charge.
It was a legit charge. You're also part of, and part of the perspective that comes with time, and we should all be grateful that it happens, hopefully, is that most of the guys that I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure if the guys on Kentucky that lost on the Leitner shot, you know, you're a distinct underdog. You're not supposed to win that game.
Right.
And then that happens. I mean, I get that it's heartbreaking. But the truth is, any one of those guys that can sit down in the course of any conversation with other sports fans, and it's known that you played in that game, your stature is not diminished in any way. Like, you were part of one of the greatest games ever played. Yep. I want to pick your brain about that. I don't think of you as a loser. I think of you as, oh, my God, how incredible was that? Tell me about the energy. Tell me what it was like on the floor. Tell me what was going through your mind when you guys did this or when they did that. Like, you're part of the larger conversation that we all adore for the rest of your life.
Oh, yeah. There's no question. And the other thing, too, is I think it would be different if they were up a point and you hit a three.
Oh,
you know what I mean? That's very different.
It was tied.
That's
tied.
being taken from you.
Yeah.
But a tie game.
Well, and I'll tell you what, it's weird because anger, and again, I'm not going to cry about it, but I would say this. Okay, that there was some intention to that shot. Now, Suggs doesn't mean to bank it, but he is online at least, and he is across half court. It's a three-quarter shot. People make that. If it were one of those shots that you see on these highlight reels all the time where somebody just throws it in, the kid just blindly throws it as high as he can and it goes in, man, that's nonsense. There's no skill or intent to that. That's just nonsense. That's a heave. You got luckier than hell. You don't deserve to win that game. That's a toughie.
Did you see the official? The official is on the wing.
And he's running with his hand up, knowing it's a three.
So it goes in, and he throws his hand down. Boom! And he goes up for the three.
Yeah. Well, he wants you to know emphatically it's good.
Yeah.
The shot counts.
We don't need to review it.
No.
That was good.
He should have started pelvic
We're
thrusting.
rodeoing.
It's time to go.
Let's do the rodeo.
It would have been funny if simultaneously, as he ran with his hand up, noting that it's a three, he's got the three fingers up, like we're not sure. His foot might have been on the line, sir. Anyhow, so he's got the three fingers up instinctively because that's what they have to do. If it had dropped, he just rodeoed all out the door. Just kept going down. Three. Frank Drebin, he's just taking it down the hall.
But that's my kind of official because Jamie Lucky would have said, we're reviewing it.
He
for
an hour.
He would have said, everybody
back
to your benches.
Get that camera on me.
Everybody to the benches. We're reviewing this, even though it was obvious. That official was like, this is an amazing moment. Woo-hoo-hoo.
Spring game this Saturday should be fun. Mike Norvell assessing his team. I'll talk about it. The Knowles baseball team. There you go, baby. That's how you close out a series. Air-free, back-to-back games. Another Elijah Cabell home run that still hasn't landed. And Connor Grady, yes, sir. A little 7 innings of you guys can suck it. Baseball thrown by him. Beautiful. Florida State had a good weekend. It's going to be a good week. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Jordan Spieth back in the win column. More on that later. It's Masters Week. All right, Augusta. You know who had a bad week or a bad weekend? DMX's lawyer. Good God. Has he never talked to his client ever? Does he have a relationship with anybody surrounding DMX? How can you represent DMX and not know if he's alive or dead or dying or not?
Yeah, you got no chance now to have a relationship with DMX, but I don't know what he said. All I saw was that DMX is still, as of today, in a vegetative state.
Yeah, no, at first he said he was dead, which he wasn't. Then he said he was fine and alert and doing all right, which he wasn't. Then he said he was awakened from a coma or something like that, which he wasn't. Like, every time he released a statement, it was wrong. He represents DMX, I guess, but has no idea of the situation. I don't know.
What would you say you do here?
Yeah, DMX's lawyer had a bad weekend. He's probably laughing. Watch this. I'm just going to tell everybody he's fine. He's riding a bicycle.
Nobody will check me on that.
Yeah. And then an hour later, after I've given everybody hope that DMX is indeed here, still with us, I'm going to let them all know that he's dead. And then 10 minutes later, I'm going to go, no, just kidding. He's in a coma. It's just bizarre. Completely random. Florida State's 18th in Baseball America. Doesn't matter. D1 Baseball, 17th. Perfect Game, 19. 21 USA Today. Like that Florida State baseball team a lot. There's a lot of reasons to like them. Yesterday it was Connor Grady, but the fact they've gone back-to-back games there, get the series win without committing an error, yes, thank you. I always talk about pick up the baseball. Please pick up the baseball. They did some picking up of the baseball. They also did some pitching, and they lead the ACC in home runs. Elijah Cabell, when he decides to hit home runs, they go for days. Gigantic dongs. Awe-inspiring dongs from Elijah Cabell on the regular these days. 5 in his last 6 games. The changeup he hit out on the 3-2 pitch yesterday was comical. Had both the height and length, Tom, that you're looking for on a dong like that. Just goes on and on and on. Glorious.
Yeah, impressive. Prodigious.
Spring game Saturday. I have a minor role in Saturday's spring game, but more importantly, I get alongside my man Gene Deckerhoff, as Florida State announced that myself, along with the all-time great Hall of Famer Gene Deckerhoff, there's the dagger! We'll get to call some plays late in the spring game, and we'll do so against Andy Staples, who used to be a cohort of mine on Sirius XM and does a good job for The Athletic, and Andrea Adelson of ESPN, who also does a good job of covering, college football for ESPN.com. So that'll be fun, just kind of a little nuance to it and all of that. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it, just to note that I am doing it, and it will be fun more than anything else. I look forward to it.
So you're going to wear a cutoff pullover?
Half shirt. A little bit of a half shirt.
Go.
Throwback
there
half shirt.
Go.
A tearaway with some bike shorts.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get after it. Maybe a headband.
Be a James Wilder Jr. outfit, right?
There we go, yeah. So that'll be fun, but I think more than anything else, I look at the spring game. Well, it's first things first, and we're gonna have Ira Schafel on WarChant.com beginning of the 4 o'clock hour to discuss the news of the day and give the overall big picture. But I'll do so here by at least noting that former Miami head coach Randy Shannon, now part of Florida State's football staff as a senior defensive analyst, also known as a guy that can open doors to South Florida in the world of recruiting. That's what that hire is. That's what that hire is about. And if he gives you anything else other than that, that's great. It's an added bonus. I do like that. Normally we're so far removed from the days where you wouldn't dare think about hiring a guy that's a Cane to be a part of a Knoll staff or vice versa. I mean, a lot of these coaches have all gone places, other rivals, hell, even the great Mickey Andrews had been down at Florida. There's a lot of these things. In that world, it's a business. It is a business, and their loyalties, their collegiate loyalties, that they don't feel about it the same way we all do out here as fans. If you can be helped, if a guy, no matter where he went to school, can help your program and it elevates your status, in this case within the state amongst recruits, yes, please, I'll take some of that. And that's what Florida State has done. And, if you're cynical, you'd say Florida State just got themselves a pseudo bagman. That's if you're cynical. I call it a commitment to recruiting at the highest level.
I wouldn't say cynical so much as optimistic.
Optimistic is a fair way of addressing
I'm
it. If you're a
optimistic.
realist about the world of recruiting, then this is a very good hire. You're optimistic as to how it could impact Florida State's ability to recruit the state of Florida.
I just think of pipelines. That's what you need.
That's what I do.
You
I
need
think about pipelines too. Yeah, I saw it and I thought, okay. Well, in all fairness, and again, we knew that if there was going to be something that you were concerned about from the staff, I thought in time we would obviously see the strengths and weaknesses on game day and those kinds of things. But in reality, it wasn't coaching acumen. It was about, can you recruit this state? Can you get a leg up on this state? At a time where we're really struggling, what can you do to close the gap between the way we're recruiting this state of Florida and the way that Florida, Miami, and for that matter, Georgia, Clemson, Alabama are recruiting the state of Florida? And you got to find a way to get back amongst the best of the best in recruiting the state, because this talent gap between the rest of the country, for the most part, besides, say, Texas and California, is pretty significant unless you're not getting them.
You brushed past it very quickly, but just to revisit this for a second, remember when Jim Leavitt was brought in as an analyst, and that was thought to be a usurping of Harlan Barnett?
Yeah.
About the 37th usurping of Harlan Barnett in his short tenure here under Willie Taggart, because by about practice 2 of fall camp the first year,
Just his comments alone.
that was usurping number 1. This is not the same thing as that, you don't think? Like, Randy Shannon's been a Power 5 head coach and coordinator. If you've got a coordinator who's on thin ice, at least from the fan base's perspective,
I don't
you
think
wouldn't look at this the
so.
same way you looked at Leavitt coming in a Harlan Barnett era as a defensive analyst.
Tom, I'm not going to look at it like that right now.
Okay.
I'm
All
going
right.
to look at this as a recruiting aid.
Very
This
well.
is going to open doors in South Florida. It may very well be that we get into week 3 or 4 of the football season and we begin to discuss an added role for Randy Shannon. And he has limitations when you're considered an analyst that he can add to your program's coaching ledger. But yes.
In the Leavitt instance, Leavitt ran what Willie wanted to run, which was a 3-down lineman front,
right.
and Harlan did not want to run that, a 4-down lineman front. So that was a little bit more obvious. This is an analyst who has run the same thing that we're running here. So it would actually be a helpful relationship. I don't think a combative one.
No, I don't think a
between two
combative
people.
one. And I don't even know what that's going to play out as or what that looks like.
But from the outside looking in, somebody who's held high positions in Power 5, that at least should be addressed and discussed. Because I would think a casual fan's like, whoa, what? You're bringing in somebody who's got that kind of experience to be an analyst here? Okay.
Well, I don't think I have been overwhelmingly sold on our current defensive coordinator and his prowess just yet. So anything to aid his endeavor to take a big step forward would be greatly appreciated.
It just seems like something Alabama would do. You hire
That's
somebody.
what Alabama does,
a
yes.
name that somebody knows. Like, oh, wasn't he just coaching somewhere?
Yeah, that's the home for lost souls. You get fired for any reason as a head coach anywhere or coordinator, and you're high profile and successful, and they believe you have the means to do well for them. Yeah, you get hired. You get locked into Saban's staff, and you sit in a dark room and you analyze tape of an opponent from 7 weeks out.
That extra booth that they sit in, too, could be called like the penance booth. It's like you serve your time.
I'll get you back in good graces, but for now,
I'm going to get you the call.
go
You're gonna
break
get
down
the
that
call.
Florida game for me and let me know.
Here's your $50.
Well, we've been wanting, until they put the kibosh on this, and I do think the NCAA should at some point, the rich get richer and others have no chance to compete because they don't have the payroll to bring on 35 members of a staff to be analysts. But until that time, I've wanted us to more resemble the programs that have 6, 7, 13, 16, 20 analysts. Yes, I've wanted that. LSUs of the world, the Georgias of the world, the Alabamas and Clemsons of the world. We've needed to do that.
Hey, man, if you told me that 5 analysts could get me from 8 to 9 wins this season, where do I sign, And what level booster contribution do you need? And how many of us do you need? Because we'll go get them.
So what to expect, I would hope. My main thing, I do this for every spring game. I'm going to say it now. I'm going to put it out into the ether, out into the world so that, maybe It listens, football gods. To expect this weekend, good time, fun time. Couple players will flash, no doubt. We've had some kids have good springs. It's really less about that. This is not really a four-quarter game. It's not the kind of game. Way back in the day, the spring game resembled something much different. I don't think it's that anymore. I think most coaches just trying to get work in and be careful as they do it. I think it's what this will look like. A lot of times it is very disjointed, convoluted. I think it's a hard game for fans, and I'm not selling it because I think it's a chance to get a glimpse. One, to be in Doak, and to be at the stadium amongst your brothers and have a good weekend and have fun and join, forces again, because we haven't really been able to do this in a long time, is always enjoyed, is always something that's preferable. But also, I never go into these games, these spring games, expecting anything other than it to be a collection of fellow Noles having a good time, enjoying the beautiful weather, like-minded friends, and maybe kind of taking a gander out there. Who can I expect to see take big leaps this fall? Has this kid gotten bigger? Is this kid faster? Oh, what about this kid? I haven't seen him. He's an early enrollee. That kind of thing.
There's a hat to wear for it. I'm planning right now to do a post-game show on Saturday with Gene Williams and War Chant, and like we did for the regular football season. There's a hat to wear there and say, all right, so what do we think about this kid? And maybe with practice access, there can be even more insight as to, well, in early March he was here, and now we get to the spring game, he's there. But that's a limited hat because this is about not getting hurt.
Not getting hurt is the biggest and first and foremost thing.
And it's about giving the people what they want and selling. That's what this weekend is about. You need fireworks, but then you also need the head of the boosters. You need the head coach. You need them to sell to their respective clientele, the fan base, the big money boosters, and the gobs of kids that are going to be visiting here for the spring game
75-plus
experience.
kids on the sideline. This has got to be fun. I suspect it'll be loud. If you're an older booster that comes to these things, you probably don't have a lot of fun because the music is usually not your cup of tea in terms of what's over the loudspeakers.
Hey, they're playing that music at practice, too.
I know, yeah.
Are people outraged? I haven't checked. Are they outraged about the music being back in practice?
But you have all of that, and then guys get after each other. You try to set some people up for big success because you need a wow moment or two to kind of wet the whistle of the fans a little bit. Oh, did you see that big play from so-and-so, Kentron Portier, or whatever it is that gets you excited? I'll just say again, they're lacking in that area of explosiveness, but you can scheme it open, make it look like it was just a great play. You just need somebody to put it on them. We'll see if that happens. Our quarterback play has not been particularly good this spring. It hasn't been dreadful either. It's just been up and down and inconsistent, as one would suspect it is when you got a new kid trying to learn the offense. You've got another in Rodemaker who was getting limited reps but beginning to showcase a skill set that you can get excited about but still needs developing. And then, Jordan Travis is a better passer than he was, but he had miles to go before he got to that place where you felt comfortable with him throwing on obvious passing downs when a defense knew what was coming. Everything feels like a giant work in progress for this group right now, and that's okay because it is. And you could argue, well, everybody is. Nah, not really. If you're a fully loaded team and your two deep is filled with 5 stars and you're coming fresh off of winning 12 games, you're not really a work in progress. You're just heightening competition and making another run at a national championship. When you're coming from where we're coming from, you are a work in progress to get back to where you've stabilized the program, where there's solid footing for people to compete, get better, believe in one another, pull in the same direction, take a step forward. That's what this is about. If you see some semblance of that in the spring game, it's a success. I'm going to be interested.
That's why the most important player this weekend is Michael Alford. The skyboxes, we need to work them. We need to work them. Champions Club need to work them. Big conversations. Need to secure some money for the facilities, for the discretionary funds to travel, get to see. Hey, coaches can start traveling again. We got to make sure we have enough gas for the jets, multiple jets. We got to be going all over the country. And we need more buildings. We need the football-only facility, maybe a new baseball stadium along the way because you need to make room for the football facility. It's a big weekend for the boosters. Come on, Alfred. Bring it home, baby.
Yeah, I wonder how well attended this will be. We are still just at that burgeoning stage where people are feeling far more comfortable getting on flights and traveling and being around other people in excess and kind of joining hands again. We're just now beginning to do that. So I do wonder. I hope it's well attended. Obviously, I know this. It's going to be extremely well attended by recruits, over 75 plus in attendance for this, including some huge names. So it's a big weekend regardless.
It's the sales game. It's not the spring game. Let's bring it home.
They always are. I mean, there was a time where obviously this was free to everybody involved. Now there's a little $10 fee, and before that it was donational. This is now changed dramatically.
On that note, I'm sure you saw this in the practices you've been to. Coach is quite good about acknowledging if there are certain people who are important to the program that are there.
Very good.
Makes time. It's almost like a station along
So
the way.
last practice I was at, I went to the scrimmage. So the second, I was at the scrimmage, and then prior to that one was the Thursday practice I think I was at, and there was a major donor that was getting the tour. He was being whisked about. He said hello to a lot of people. I actually ended up talking to him, not because I'm anybody, but because he was going by and I knew the person that was escorting him. And, hey, how are you? Good to see you. And he was with his son, and then they went down onto the field and hung out. And, yeah, I saw Norvell and others come by to say hello. And
he'd go from the defensive field to the offensive line, make it over to the how you doing station, and then back over to defense. It's well done. It's really well done.
It's the aspect of your job as a college coach that I think most of us would find laborious, but is completely necessary. And you have to view it in a way, especially when you're building a program, as something to attack, as part of an expertise, as something that you can get better at, as something that you can learn from. And I know that Jimbo used to do that and talk about that. I think your best recruiters in various interviews over the years have talked about you don't look at that as this other thing that you have to do as opposed to calling X's and O's, but rather something that you embrace to do better than your fellow competitor. And I think this is no different, right? Securing that money, securing those contributions and the happiness of those who can really make a difference in your program is a skill.
We are unconquered.
Well, listen, a lot of coaches actually lack in that arena, and it proves to be their downfall because you can be a very good football strategist, or for lack of a better term, your acumen for the game day, play calling, sense of it, feel, whatever it might be better than most. You lack the people skills to, butter up those that can help out off the field. Well,
thank you very much.
Yeah, don't slip up.
I can do this.
Don't slip up because they'll come calling quick. I mean, the second things go south.
That's good to know.
So he's doing a good job of that. And now he's bringing in Randy Shannon, who will do those things for us in South Florida, where it is necessary to continue to foster relationships and change the outlook of this program.
Critical.
It's vital to this program's future, without question. Jeff Cameron, 97.9, ESPN Radio. Named Hubert Davis to replace Roy Williams. Look at this thing, just automatically picking up. It's like you ever have this happen? You're in the middle of doing the show, or we're having a conversation, and Siri's like, "Oh, he wants me to talk." Siri has signaled something to me, and Jeff has signaled something to me. So hold on 1 second, I'll search for that. I didn't say your name, Siri.
Well, you keep saying her name, maybe she's going to appear in the mirror, right? With the phone, with the watch now, I'm learning too. There are little rules. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Like the amount of notifications. The worst
Too
app
many notifications
of all time for notifications is a great app in general. Is MLB At Bat. I don't care what you think the top 10 pitchers in the NL East are right now. Will you please stop pinging my phone and my watch?
Hey, so I often am late to the party on this since you're bringing this up, and I'll get back to Hubert Davis being hired by North Carolina. I am curious, do you have it set up on your laptop or your home computer where, Google just continues to tell you up in the right corner, got this going on over here. Hey, Did you know about this? 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 It never effing ends.
Yeah, the director back here likes to enable those things. I disable them every time he enables them. He puts them on our computers. And I'm like, nope, I don't care. I don't care what YouTube suggests for me. I don't care what Yahoo News. I'm glad there's news there, but no. And at my house, ain't no way. Google wants to give you notifications. No.
Nope. The answer is no.
Allowed.
Not going to do.
I will ask you to give me the news.
Yeah.
You don't tell me the news without my permission.
That is correct.
Pal.
Yeah. Okay. Got to get better at disabling that. Exciting news for the NFL draft at the end of the month. We're going to be at Bumpus. It's going to be a good time.
Yes, it will.
Woo, buddy.
The NFL draft
It's
party
upon us. We're in the month.
Back.
The draft party is back. We're going to do it. Come on out if you feel comfortable. Should be a great time. Always is. Woo, we missed it a year ago. We're going to be at Bumpus Local 349. Cannot wait. Food's delicious. Atmosphere is awesome. Gazillion televisions. You can walk outside on the deck. Should be beautiful weather. The whole to-do.
It's going to be a big time. I've already got 4 or 5 people who know how to enjoy an NFL draft watch party saying, I cannot wait to be there.
Oh, buddy. Let's get it on. Hubert Davis, the next coach. I'm going to miss you rolling out there, Roy. I like the way you rolled it out there. But now Hubert might get them to play hard. That's unfortunate.
You think Seth Greenberg was like, uh-oh. Roy's hanging it up from coaching? Uh-oh.
I don't know, but Davis has been an assistant coach under Roy. Maybe he learned his ways. Not the championship ways, but the ways of the last 3 years. Just kind of rolling it out there.
What would you call him? Roll it out there, Davis? Or,
no, he'd have to have a new nickname if it didn't work out. No, it may work out well. I mean, listen, again, I gave you my big picture view of Roy and the Hall of Famer that he is.
They've got to do work as a program to catch us right now. That's one of the mandates for Hubert is to catch the likes of Florida State.
You can't let Florida State run away with this conference. You just can't let them do it. Guys, I don't like where this is headed. Now, I know Roll It Out there had to be allowed to play it out on his own time, but this shall not stand. Let's go, man, across this line. There is that.
Do you realize if you made an acronym out of that, the word would be Riot? Riot Roy.
Oh, good old Roy. Another lawsuit has been filed against Deshaun Watson. We're up to 22. I'm not going to read it. It's amazing. It's amazing how explicit these things get now on in these articles.
Is it very similar to the other 20? Is it another masseuse?
It is another masseuse. It's not outside the realm of the others, Tom. This isn't a waitress, but rather a masseuse.
What do you know?
My man is addicted to seeing massage therapists. I wonder if it ever came up, meaning the Texans ever pulled him aside and said, not for nothing, what's with all the massage therapy? What's going on here? I mean, we got people. What are you doing?
Deshaun, can I ask about the business cards in the tray there in your car? That's a big stack, and they're all different.
You know, a lot of people have a lot of different places they like to get sandwiches. Sandwiches are delicious. And I understand the need that you get a sandwich made this way on one day, maybe a different kind of sandwich, maybe a uniquely ethnic sandwich over here. Then you're going to have this sandwich over there. You know, like we go from an Italian to perhaps a Reuben, something different like that. But so a lot of different places. I get that. But massage is massage, unless it's not, Deshaun. I mean, what is going on here? Irashafel, warchant.com. Joining us next. Stay tuned. Hour number 2, Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio, and it is good to be here on a glorious Monday, busy week, fun week. Kind of a sports lover's paradise this week with the spring game coming up this weekend, Augusta National, we've got the Masters, we've got the National Championship game tonight, MLB is back, NHL in full form, NBA, we got everything right now. Good times. Online, ESPNTallahassee.com. Of course, thanks to all of you listening on traditional radio, and hello, YouTubers. All guests appear via the Phone Hero hotline. Phone Hero specializing in iPhone and iPad repair at 2 locations, 2915 Cary Forest Parkway, 833 West Gain Street. Online, PhoneHeroTLH.com. I say that to say this. Let's welcome him in. My man, IrashFellWarChant.com, the website, joining me as he's wont to do on a Monday. Hello, Ira. How are you, brother?
I am great, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited. I don't know where to begin. The baseball team takes the series over North Carolina. Looks really impressive doing it, winning back-to-back games. They now lead the ACC in home runs. They don't commit an error in the last 2 games. They get great pitching. That's a fun series and something to note. I know the spring game coming up on Saturday we're both excited about. I'm more blown away by the fact that Florida State's bringing in, what is it now, over 70 recruits? Is that right, Ira?
Yeah, it's over 70 and counting. There's talk that it may get to could get to 100 or more.
They are
big
party.
Them in for the spring game.
Yeah, they're packing them in for the spring game, which should be fun. I look forward to that. Of course, I would also note right on the surface here that Randy Shannon added to the coaching staff. Your thoughts on this? I know he's hired as a defensive analyst. Everybody amongst Florida State faithful remember Randy Shannon as a head coach down at the University of Miami and former player. We know he wasn't a very good head coach. He may end up being a very good analyst and or I would think, Ira, this is about recruiting. Your thoughts on that hire?
Yeah, no, I think it's a no-brainer. If you can bring in a guy like Randy Shannon, there's no question. He comes in as a defensive analyst. He's a little bit limited in what he can do from a coaching perspective. He won't be able to go on the field and help coach any position players or do anything like that. He also can't, in recruiting, he can't go on the road. He can't go visit, do an in-home visit or go visit a high school and talk to coaches or recruits, but he can do everything else. And so, when it comes to phone calls, when it comes to opening doors in South Florida,
Yep.
I think from a recruiting standpoint, it's a really big deal. He can talk to contacts down in South Florida and say, hey, one of our assistant coaches is coming down there to visit. You need to treat him right. You need to take care of him. So that's helpful. And then when high school coaches come to campus, when everything opens up again, here hopefully this summer, and high school coaches from around the state come up to Tallahassee, that's going to be a familiar face to them. And they're going to know Randy Shannon, and that's going to help in that regard. Also, I think he's always had a good relationship with Odell Higgins, and I think he knows some other guys on the staff. So I think it makes sense for a lot of reasons, but, whether or not he contributes, how much he contributes to defensive game planning or anything like that, it's really hard to say. I don't know how that's all going to work out, but from a recruiting standpoint, there's no question it's going to be helpful.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of. I saw the headline. The first thing I thought of was I shouldn't say I don't care how he influences the defense. The defense has got a long way to go, and we're all going to watch very closely to see if they take the strides necessary to be worlds better than they were a year ago. One would think so. But the first thing I thought of wasn't about that. It was more about, oh, man, there's a guy that connects you to South Florida, because the one thing we were all worried about with this coaching staff as it was pieced together wasn't necessarily coaching acumen. We assume all those guys can coach and understand the game. It was the lack of connections throughout the state of Florida, and we know how difficult it is to get doors to open up if you're not part of a group or you don't know the right people per se, down in South Florida in particular, really throughout the state. I mean, it's a fickle animal, this state of Florida, in recruiting. I saw that name and I went, well, okay, there you go. That's smart. You're opening doors. So I think Florida State fans should be excited about that. What are you looking for in the spring game, Ira? Because I've debated this, and I think amongst the fan base, it's frustrating on the one hand to know that you just don't have an overabundance of electrifying players that are going to lead you into a season in which you forever alter the prospects of the program and win 9 or 10 games. That's really not what this year is about. In a lot of ways, this is the true year one. So having said that, against that backdrop, what are you expecting to see on Saturday?
I just want to see the play calling from what is the local legends team. That's really all I'm focused on.
Hey, well, so
I'm going to be charting it. I'm going to be critiquing. We made a separate video breakdown.
Oh boy!
On play calling.
I'm under the gun, huh? All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Just letting you know, fair warning.
All right. I look forward to that.
Yeah, I think I think that from a defensive standpoint, just the biggest thing to me is I know some of these guys can make plays. I mean, I've seen it now. We've been out to practices, even though it didn't always show up last season on the field for a variety of reasons. I know that Jarvis Brownlee can make plays.
Yep.
I know that some of those guys individually can play. Obviously, Jermaine Johnson, the transfer from Georgia, Jamie Robinson, the transfer from South Carolina, a couple of the other returning guys, Jarian Jones and then Travis Jay. And
yep.
There's guys on that defense. Amari Gaynor, I think, has had a great spring. Those guys, I think, I believe they can make plays. If they're put in a position to make a play, they can make it. The biggest thing I want to see is that you just don't have the big breakdowns anymore. Looking at, we obviously saw them a lot during Harlan Barnett's tenure, but we saw them a lot again last season, where you just had poor guys lined up poorly. Either giving up too much of the middle of the defense, giving up too much, safeties playing too far back in the red zone, just things like that, or busted assignments, or confusion, or wrong gaps. That kind of stuff I'd like to see fixed. And they're not. You would assume it's going to be pretty vanilla. They're not going to go super exotic in a spring game. So, I think that it shouldn't be too mentally taxing in terms of a game plan. Just want to see that the defense is coordinated well. And on the offensive side of the ball, I really want to see, I'm really focused on the quarterbacks and the receivers. I think Jayshon Corbin at running back is solid. I think he'll be a nice player. Lawrence Toafili, I think, is a super talent. So there's nothing I need to see from him. The offensive line is what it is. I think it's continuing to make progress, but it's not, the greatest offensive line by any stretch. But really the quarterback and the receivers and how they play, how far they've come over this last month, because I think that'll give us an indication. Because at the beginning of the spring, it was pretty rough. It's gotten better a few of the times we've seen them. At the end of the spring, I would like to see how far they've come, and that might give you an idea of how far they may be able to get to by the time the season starts in September.
Ira, what happens, and I'm really worried this could happen, if I lead Geno English on a 7-play, 70-yard touchdown drive early on, just exploiting the weaknesses I know this defense has, calling plays accordingly, highlighting Geno's strengths? Would the fan base hate me for that? Or should I intentionally allow the defense to make some plays in terms of play calling, just sabotage my own offense?
No, man, I think you got to be you. You got to be true to yourself.
Yeah.
Because, that's what's going to bring out the best on the other side. So I think you got to do what you got to bring the excellence that everybody expects.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to know how I should handle it. I'm a little worried about it because I feel like my guys are going to make plays. We're already talking. I got message early this morning, so we're starting to kind of formulate a plan here, and I feel good about that plan. Back to the realities of this situation. It's always weird in a spring game, man, because you're doing a couple things. You're holding your breath that nobody gets hurt. That's the other aspect of this that I do worry about. On a serious note, I think the starters on both sides are adequate to decent, in some cases good, as you noted, a few players, but they do seem like a group. Both these teams, offense and defense, do seem like groups that if they get hurt anywhere, the drop-off is pretty precipitous.
It is definitely in certain situations, in certain places, and in certain places not as much. And I think you see it really manifest itself when they play twos versus twos. I think the second team defensive. It's really the third team defensive backs. They've got several guys in the defensive backfield between first and second string that are out. So basically what that means is now your third string becomes your second string. And so you've got a lot of guys out there who just aren't ready to play. A lot of them are not scholarship players. On the offensive line, it's very much the same thing. When you've got some guys out, and then you've got a lack of depth at a couple of positions, and all of a sudden that second team offensive line is a huge drop. I kind of wonder if that's part of the reason the spring game is going to be a little bit condensed. It's not going to be 4 full quarters, and maybe try to limit any of chances of anything like that happening. But the good thing is, it seems like in the last couple weeks they've started getting some guys back from injuries. Davion Johnson, the center, backup center, or starting offensive guard, has been more active lately. Renardo Green's been more active lately. Jadarius Green-McKnight. There's several guys that were not participating in the first couple of weeks that have started participating more, and I think that should help this last week.
Yeah, for those fans that are planning on going, Ira, you just alluded to it, so let's illuminate that for them. The kind of outline for what they're going to see, I guess. You mentioned it's going to be more condensed. That's correct. What is it fans will expect to see as they settle into their seats and they're going to be watching, well, they're not going to be watching a traditional game?
Yeah, so it's what they're told us is that it's going to be two 12-minute quarters, and then there's going to be some activities surrounding it. That'll be some other skills work and things like that. But instead of 4 traditional quarters, it's going to be 2 quarters and separated by like a little halftime. So I think it's just going to be more of a controlled scrimmage than maybe a full game.
Well, spring is always interesting. We get really excited or really depressed based on spring results. I don't think that's the way that I would look at this spring. I think if they've accomplished anything, and you hear it in Mike Norvell's quote. In fact, I read this quote off of warchant.com, Ira, in which he says, "We're by no means a finished product. I see the proper steps that are going into how we work, going into how we try to respond to good and bad situations. The team's gotten closer. It's embracing the work that is required. I think the improvements are showing across the board." Doesn't that sound to you like a guy who's finally kind of been able to make his imprint on the program and get kids just pulling in the same direction for the first time in a long time?
I think there's no question. And really, from that standpoint, it's got to be a lot more fun to coach right now because I do feel like he's got a group of players for the vast majority. You might have 1 or 2 knuckleheads that you still got to deal with here or there, but for the most part, it's guys that want to get better, that believe in the system, that believe in their teammates, want to do the right things. And so you're hearing, you usually get a feel for that when the players are parroting a lot of the same things that the coaches say, whether it's on social media or in our interviews. And I think you're seeing that. Guys are more on the same page. And not to be a downer, but, I do feel like it's important to mention this. And we've said it a couple of times already this spring, and I'm sure we'll keep saying it up until the season. But that's a big step. Getting everybody on the same page is a big step. At the same time, it's not like you've got a ton of difference makers out there on both sides of the ball to where, okay, once we start working together, it's going to be a 10 or 11 win team. That's a big part of it. Then they've got to continue to, over the next couple of classes, get better and better players. Right now, getting everybody pulling in the same direction is great, and I think it's going to be important. I think you're going to see improvement. But, it's going to be a while from a talent standpoint, another recruiting class or 2, before, you're talking about competing against some of the top teams in college football.
Yeah, on the one hand, it's necessary. On the other hand, it's hard not to cringe when you're thinking about the very basic level of commitment that one team has to have success, right? I mean, that's where we're at. That's why you ran off some guys out of this program. That's why some other guys left. That's why you've had losing records. I mean, you're really having to start from the beginning, but it's good to know it's successfully playing out. It just means there's still a long way to go. Always appreciate it, brother. Be well.
Thanks, Jeff. I'll see you, man.
All right, take care. That's Ira Schoffel, warchant.com on the Phone Hero hotline. Yeah, I mean, I hear it. I hear what it sounds like. If I'm driving down the road, I'm listening to these two guys talking about the spring game and its players and the lack of explosiveness and not a ton of playmakers and all that sort of thing. And then they kind of revert back to talking about how everybody's now working together, pulling in the same direction. I think, oh, boy. But honestly, man, they have not been this way in a while. This has been a fractured program for some time, and it dates back to the end of Jimbo's time. So you just think about that. You think about how nobody's really been on the same page, that it's been a kind of convoluted, fractured group, that guys were looking out for their own best interests, coaches walking on eggshells, administrators walking on eggshells. Then you're trying to rebuild, and it begins to fall apart pretty quickly because there were cracks in the armor there early on that the players picked up on. Some of the coaches did too. Administrators began to worry. You start fresh again. When you're starting fresh, basically for the third time in 5 years, you can't possibly expect elite level play, but you can expect that the person in charge get them pulling in the same direction, and I think that's what this has been about.
I think it's enough if you're pulling in the same direction to beat a lot of teams in the ACC.
Right. It's not a great conference. It's not. This is not the ACC it was going back to 13, 14, 15, where we started to talk about the real gains the conference had made on the SEC to the point where in that 1 year we noted that they were the better conference for one season.
Yeah, 14.
Yeah, for one season it was a better conference, and then it quickly fell back down to earth, and it's really begun to wane now. We've had this side conversation, which is the greater conversation about the direction of the program, the ACC in general, and what can be expected with the money disparity. But the bottom line is, getting back to this team, to get to where you can have a foundation to lurch forward with better players and compete at a high level, this has to be established, and it seems so rudimentary. But I understand that that's part of – you can hear it in his voice. Listen to those quotes. He's acknowledging, hey, we're not great, but we're at least a team. We're a team again, and that's important because he didn't get to do that last year.
Yeah, as a fan, that's enough for me this year. In 2 years it wouldn't be, but for this year, that's plenty. Come on.
Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. And just like that, my man escapes New York City and will be a member of the Carolina Panthers. We were talking about the NFL draft and how excited we are to be able to go to Bumpus on that Thursday for the draft party. Going to be a great time, but the build-up to the NFL draft is also something that we as football fans absolutely love. You get to see the swapping of picks, get the opportunity to see, like, some insight typically early on in this month as to the direction programs are going to go, franchises are going to go. Obviously, Carolina has said, yeah, we'll take a chance on Sam Darnold. We got a pretty good young OC that we feel good about. Sam Darnold's people saying he could use a fresh start. Never really got much of a good chance to succeed in New York. And the Jets are like, okay.
It's a decent price, too. A sixth, a second, and a fourth. The sixth coming this year, the second and the fourth coming next year for a guy that you're able to put on trial, essentially. You're like, all right, is this going to work out, or were you really screwed by the Jets? We'll give you McCaffrey as a start and a couple of guys over the top. That's not too bad.
So the Jets will take Darnold's replacement is the immediate aftermath. That is as the number 2 pick in the April 29th draft, aforementioned. In Cleveland, we'll be at Bumpus, not Cleveland. It's going to be awesome. I hope to see you there. I imagine it will be a packed house. Zach Wilson seems to be the guy they would be targeting, and I would say bravo. That's a good pick. That's a reason to be excited. If you're a Jets fan today, you're more excited than you were yesterday. You've got a chance at Zach Wilson, who looks like, at the very best, could be a bigger, stronger version of the guy they got in Kansas City.
So what's fun is, okay, so the draft, I believe, starts at 8, I would think, 8 o'clock. So the first 3 picks are assured in terms of position at the very least. You know the first 2. The names that are going to be called is Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. It's probably going to be Mac Jones at this point.
So we think we're going quarterback 1, 2, 3, just like that, yeah?
Yes. That means that the Falcons are in, as Paul Azinger likes to say, the catbird seat, because they now have quarterback number 4 available, be it Fields or Mac Jones or Trey Lance, if anybody wants to trade up and come take that pick off Atlanta's hands. The chess pieces really start to move, unless somebody trades for the number 4 pick already before draft night. But that night, about 15, 20 minutes into the proceedings, that's when the chess pieces really start moving on the board.
So we're getting 5 quarterbacks in the first round off the board, we think. Mac Jones being 4th or 5th, Justin Fields, or for that matter, Trey Lance. Okay.
Right. Well, Jones could be 3rd to San Francisco.
Well, he could be. They seem to like him a lot. That's up for debate, by the way. I mean, there are some that think that it's Trey Lance that they're in love with. But either way, we're thinking of 5 first-round picks of quarterbacks. And in this order, 1, 2, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. Then from there, we go into whichever ones these guys like that are willing to move around to get. I mean, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Justin Fields. Then we get to the second tier of quarterbacks. By the way, one in which I don't suppose, but it's entirely possible, the Bucs could get in Kyle Trask from the University of Florida. Down the list some.
That would be an interesting pick.
Wouldn't want to touch Kellen Mond. He sucks. I think you get a precipitous drop-off once you get past Trask. I like Trask, by the way. Once you get to Kellen Mond territory, you start talking about some of these other guys, whether that's Jamie Newman. I don't know. I mean, whoever you want to talk about, I think it drops off pretty significantly.
So just as an NFC South fan right now, and I wish we were still in the Central, but we're not, so you got to move forward with that 15 years later. It's interesting low-key now, at least, this division. With Sam Darnold out in Carolina, they got to fix their defense, but they got a top 10 pick that they can now spend that on. They don't have to worry about quarterback necessarily this year, do the Panthers.
Jameis starting in New Orleans.
Yep. And then you could get Kyle Pitts heading to Atlanta with the 4th overall pick.
I'd prefer that not happen.
I would too, but that would pair Ridley and Julio, who's never healthy, on the outsides with Kyle Pitts in the middle.
I mean, they've got players on offense. They had players last year. That's right. They're rarely healthy, but yes.
They replaced their defensive coaching staff, which is a big move for them, and they didn't replace him with Lovie Smith like the Texans did, so that's good. I mean, listen, it's the Bucs division to lose, but you might actually cultivate a second playoff team for the NFC South.
Revival of the NFC South being the bear that it was forever and a day, where every time you looked around, it was a Pro Bowl quarterback walking into your stadium. You're like, Jesus, again?
It probably won't happen, but there's at least 3 contenders to get to that 9-7, 10-6 watermark, I would think, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
It's not the East, so that division sucks. You don't have to worry about that division at all. Now you're just competing. It's 12 teams for a couple of spots.
Well, what is fun is the peppered mocks that begin starting right now, one day after the next. You get it from here on out. Every week, it'll be 4.0, 5.0, 6.0. Invariably, you get the frustration.
Don't forget about 5.1 or 6.1.
Oh, I forgot. You're right. So let's look. Let's see. Trevor Lawrence.
Mel Kiper's allowed to do trades this year, just as a refresher. We've talked about that already.
Trey Lance, Justin Fields. Penny falls to, boy, Dolphins fans are hoping Kyle Pitts falls somewhere in the neighborhood of 6. You, sir, there you go.
Their ideal scenario is if Penny gets picked and maybe one other thing happens so they could have a choice between Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts, or one of the two falls back to them.
Well, remember this. Carolina was projected by many to be looking at Mac Jones, and they were going to draft at 8, and a lot of people thought they could get him there, especially if San Francisco was looking at the other kid from North Dakota State. So at that point, it was kind of like, well, maybe Mac is there. If not, then it is Trey Lance. And if it's not Trey Lance. But now that all changes with Carolina. And I wonder, like you said, who begins to jockey for position and offer up an awful lot. There are plenty of teams that aren't going to touch quarterback. Plenty of teams that are going to go defense. Micah Parsons and go somewhere 9 or 10 to Denver. Dallas looking at Patrick Surtain in the second.
So one thing you said there is really fascinating when you're talking about Carolina's strategy to go get Sam Darnold.
Mm-hmm. They just decided they liked him more than Mac Jones and anybody else they could have gotten.
Or they think that by the time they're picking at 8, all 5 will be gone. Like, why would you go trade for Darnold now and not let it play out until draft night if you liked Trey Lance or the worst of Fields
Whatever
or Mac
punches,
Jones
yeah.
on San Francisco's board? Right? Like, why wouldn't you wait and let it play out at 8? It's either you like Sam Darnold a hell of a lot more than those two, or you think that at least 4 of those quarterbacks are going to be off the board and you're not a fan of the 5th. That tells me that there might be another move here to go get a quarterback in the spots between where Carolina drafts and where San Francisco does, picks 4 through 7.
So the Jets received 3 picks. They got the 6th rounder in 2021. So this year they get a 6th rounder. That's nothing. Later, and they get a 2nd rounder and a 4th rounder in 2022.
Yeah, it's not much.
That's not much at all. That is not a steep price. Man. All right, well, they'll go get Zach Wilson, and to give up that for Zach Wilson is not much, and I think that a lot of people are really excited about that kid's future. Of course, they always are with every kid, and I know that there's huge doubt that accompanies all these picks, but, man, I know it's a pro day, but did you watch it?
Yeah, I saw it. I mean, the throw against his body.
No, but there's every throw in the bag, and then the extra.
Well, I saw it in September. We talked about that.
We did.
Hey, that kid at BYU is really good.
Yeah, well, I kept talking about it like in the weeks subsequent too.
That was the segment. We didn't even know his name. We're like, hey,
BYU, you watching that kid from BYU?
They play late every Friday night. You know what? You should turn it on because that kid can make unbelievable throws. Check out the kid from BYU.
As for Darnold, that's a wrap in New York, obviously, but he did have to play for sorry-ass Gase. Now, from there, you should note, he went 13-25 as a starter. The Jets, that's a team stat. That's not a quarterback stat. 45 touchdown passes, 39 interceptions. He completed under 60% of his passes, never finished above 26 in passer rating. He finished as the NFL's lowest-rated passer in 2020, 36 out of 36 qualifying quarterbacks. His career passer rating is 78.6. That's 39th out of 39 since 2018. But he was in an impossible situation. But those are stark numbers.
I love this move if I'm Joe Brady because if I can get that guy to be a top 15 passer in the league, I'm getting a head coaching job the next year.
Yeah.
This is my chance to get – it's like the fast lane opportunity. Brady will stick as long as he wants to with the current head coaching regime. I think it's Matt Rule that's out there in Carolina.
Yeah.
Very forgettable team this year, if I don't remember it. But this is his chance to say, all right, if I want a head coaching job in 2022 or 2023, watch me, work with Sam Darnold and make him into something that Gase never could.
You know what's funny about the Sam Darnold conversation? Depending on what you're reading and from which former player, I'm talking about former players assessing that guy, and even some that were around the Jets, you don't get too many more polarizing figures than Sam Darnold as to the differences of opinion. Like most of the time, a guy is a victim of a situation. A lot of people will just say, Well, I don't know that it's fair to judge him. They had one of the worst offensive lines in football. They didn't have an explosive receiver for him to throw to. And then as a play caller, Gase was an embarrassment to football. And obviously, what's he going to do? And that all seems to be true.
Plus health issues in the receiving core this year.
That's what I mean, all the health issues. But normally that is the first thing that comes up. But with Darnold, you get a lot of people who say, look, he just can't play. He can't play. I don't know why they're wasting time. They need to cut bait and go. And then the retort is immediately, you're nuts. He has all the physical tools. He's never been given a fair shot. You're crazy if you let go of him. Now that you got rid of that staff, let a real coach come in here and see if we can't adjust. It's weird. I mean, those are polar opposite perspectives. Normally, it's a little bit more in the middle, and you're not seeing that with him at all. I have no idea. I watched the Jets twice this year.
For good reason.
The Jets are insignificant on a weekly basis.
You watched Greg Williams call one weekend is what
against
you did.
Oakland and against Las Vegas Raiders, and I jumped for joy because I was in shock as it happened. I thought I was dead in the water, and then that pass happened, and I was, oh, my goodness gracious, I love you, New York.
Yeah, on the heels of just missing another one just before that.
Yeah.
To Aguilar, who was ready to kill Carr.
Yeah, overthrew him.
And now he's in New England.
And they overpaid for him.
They're lurking.
They're fun, actually. They're going to be fun, although I don't get it. I mean,
they're going to be the tough out team.
Cam limits you, but, I mean, they did go give him a whole bunch of weapons. And, the one thing that last time we were talking about Cam, and I've brought this up about his injuries in the shoulder and the lack of arm strength and all the weirdness and the hitch and the giddy up and all that, that doesn't go away just because – my concerns about that don't go away just because you didn't get a normal camp. Like, everybody brings that up. Well, he didn't get a real shot to learn the offense. Well, I mean, the throwing motion is the throwing motion. The arm strength is the arm strength, and it just didn't look to be there. But the one thing I would say is they've given him a ton of weapons, and he will get a full camp, and he will have every opportunity in the world to be that guy. And I think they're going to lead an offense that allows him just to be a battering ram. I think he's just decided, okay.
They gave him play action, too.
They gave him play action. They gave him a chance. They're going to be fun. He's clearly embracing the opposite.
This has been for the NFL these last two off seasons. And imagine if there wasn't a pandemic, and in a lot of ways everything changes. But, the hype that would have surrounded last off season. Like, the Brady signing was a big deal, obviously. Had real reverberations, and the Bucs were talked about a bunch.
The Super Bowl.
But if the pandemic wasn't a part of the conversation, the hype machine for last year in the preseason with a full preseason schedule, I mean, it would have been out of control. But think about these last two off seasons for the quarterback carousel and then the draft on top of it. They have been epic for the league. And you combine that with some day one Pro Bowl caliber players in the draft. This year, it's Kyle Pitts and Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase's pro day was the one that I was like, oh, my God.
Look at that. Yeah, that's
the numbers,
different.
They comped him with Calvin Johnson and DK Metcalf.
Yeah. They all say he's can't miss. And a lot of people, because of his injury problems in the past, are like, oh, who is this guy?
And then with Kyle Pitts, they comped him with Calvin Johnson. He's close enough in a lot of categories. The 40 time isn't as fast. The wingspan is big.
It's not even close, right?
The vertical leap is Kyle Pitts is.
No, we watch Kyle Pitts. We've seen Kyle Pitts play. We know he's a real good player. I mean, did you ever think that he looked like Calvin Johnson?
No. Well, if you're looking for measurables and you're just like, whoa, you're telling me that this guy's wingspan is bigger than Calvin Johnson's and his drop rate is lower than anybody in college football.
No, he's a great player. He's
and he can run at that
player.
Speed at that position, and the league has figured out how to make that position a feature within the offense.
First round pick, I'm with you. I draw the line at let's not compare this tight end to Calvin Johnson.
Well, if you're looking at the 40 time and you're looking at all these measurables, and they're even close to Calvin Johnson, you're playing in a position that's uncoverable, at a size that's uncoverable because you're bigger than Megatron. I mean, now you're talking about somebody that you can plug in for 10 years. Like, the draft is about minimizing risk.
Yes.
I think the lowest risk is Kyle Pitts in the entire draft. Lowest risk.
I love him. I thought he was an incredible player. I wish the Bucs were going to get him, although we have an abundance of tight ends, especially with O.J. Howard is the last guy that was described in this manner. I
think you hate him.
I don't. Calvin Johnson's one of the best receivers to ever play football, and he's a receiver, not a tight end. There have been very few people on earth that compare to Calvin Johnson. I mean, you hear Pro Bowl defensive players say, I couldn't do anything with him. I don't know. I saw defenses in college stop Kyle Pitts. I mean, could very well be that the
I'm
translation.
I'm not saying he's Megatron, too. All I'm saying is if you've got numbers like that and you play tight end,
no, it's
holy
gonna be,
crap.
Yeah, I know. Oh, well, it's, again, an example of some of the freakish athletes we watch come out of the draft every year now, where tight ends are running times that that position has, yes, transformed.
You're going to be drawing backers and safeties. I mean, Kelsey's the most important player on the field, and they have Tyreek Hill in that
And nobody
offense.
can cover Kelsey either. That's the weirdest thing. I mean, like when you watch him, yeah, he's an athletic freak.
And
too.
this guy's better, like athletically
speaking. We'll
Yeah.
see. Yeah. So anyhow, we'll be at Bumpus.
So
for
don't
the
draft the
Falcons.
Falcons.
It's the Jeff Cameron Show. I did not know this. But amongst the impressive numbers, you can find various websites, Justin Ray's, and all the rest of the PGA Tour numbers guys that are all over Twitter. Too many to name, but I do like to doff the cap to a few. But we did see, and I'll mention it sparingly since we have such a busy week with football and baseball, and, of course, the spring game coming up, national championship tonight, and basketball. But it is Masters Week, after all, and we're not going to ignore it. It's one of the great sporting events in all the world, and as we get set for it, it should be duly noted that Jordan Spieth, somewhat quietly, given all that is also going on, ended the 4-year drought and is back in the winner's circle, and he was impressive on Sunday because he had to make putts under fire, and he did. I would also say the up and down on Saturday on 17, if you happen to tune into that, was pretty damn impressive as well. So some shots there that reminded you of the old Jordan Spieth. But get this, Tom. I thought you'd like this. He is still pretty prolific when you consider that drought, right? Okay, he wins victory drought of more than 1,300 days. Ooh, that had to feel like an eternity, right?
Mm-hmm. And you'll be asked about it after about 1 year. Every single time you step up to the podium, you are asked about the drought. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But with the win, he puts himself once again, and it reminds you of how good he was prior to 2017 and the wheels kind of falling off. He is amongst the most prolific PGA Tour winners at his age in the last 40 years. Jordan Spieth is one of 5 players. You ready for this? Because I'm going to test you, Tom.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Jordan Spieth is one of 5 players to win 12 or more times before age 28 in the last 40 years.
Okay.
Can you name the others?
12 times?
So over the last 40 years, just the last 40 years.
Yep.
Don't go back too far, right?
Mm-hmm.
Spieth is one of 5, so you only have to name 4.
Yeah.
To win 12 or more times before the age of 28.
Okay.
So
Tiger.
Tiger, obviously.
DJ?
No.
Justin Thomas?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Okay. And let's go with Ricky. No, I'm just kidding. Rom?
Rory McIlroy.
Okay.
So, yeah, he's pretty prolific. So that's a list to be included in. I mean, if you're on a list, it's Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, and Jordan Spieth. That's it. That's all. It's very, very impressive. He'll try to become the 5th player to win win a PGA Tour event immediately preceding the Masters, then go on to win at the Masters. It's been done. Most notably by Phil Mickelson in 2006. Of course, Tom, you'll remember the great Ralph Goodall, who did it in 1939. Or maybe perhaps Art Wall, who did it in 1959.
Phil has done that twice. He's won the Scottish Open before he won the British.
That is correct.
Yeah.
He won the last player to win an event the week before a win in any major was in 2014 when Rory McIlroy won the WGC Bridgestone Invitational, then won the PGA Championship at Valhalla.
Huh, okay.
But Phil in 06 was the second of what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sandy Lyle did it in 1988. You were 2. It was a big day.
Sandy Lyle still plays, doesn't he?
I think occasionally
he does.
tees it up, and we're like, oh, Sandy's teeing it up again.
I just know that because I'm in a Masters pool where you look at the odds, and that's basically how you draft him, and he's on the final page.
Yeah. This is an amazing stat, and I'll leave it alone, move on from golf.
Maybe it's Larry Mize. Anyway.
Jordan Spieth, drought, 1,300 days, wins the Valero Texas Open by 2 strokes over the great Charlie Hoffman. It was a really heady pick on my part, by the way.
Charlie played well.
He did play well.
That's his course, too.
Yes, clearly. That's why I picked him, because you're never going to pick him anywhere else. Spieth gained 12.89 strokes on the field from tee to green for the week. That's the most of any win he's ever had in his career. His wedge play, 50 to 125 yards, best proximity to the hole of anyone in the field by a ton.
Oh, no. Rory McIlroy is waking up with a cold sweat hearing that information.
In his career, and this is this is about betting, folks. If you don't know, this isn't me just waving the flag for
Yeah,
Jordan
there's
Spieth.
correlation between these numbers and his performance at the Masters. Yes.
Yeah, in his career, I think it's, if I remember reading this correctly, yes. Of 20 more rounds played, Spieth has the lowest scoring average of all time at his age. The next closest, by the way, in strokes gained total per round. He's second most. You know who had the most? Ben Hogan. So Spieth plays well at Augusta. We know this. He's in good form, and strokes gained on approach is right now the number one stat to look at going into the Masters. You going to pick Jordan Spieth?
Oh, hell no. Now, I understand why he's the favorite. I was trying to pull up a number, and here it is. It's from Kyle Porter, who covers
great.
the tour. He covers the tour
CBS.
quite well. He was looking at Spieth strokes gained numbers in the 3 months leading into April, the month of the Masters, of course. And you can find a correlation between if Jordan is anywhere close to playing well,
Yeah.
he's going to finish high at the Masters. So I'll run it down real fast. 2014, he was 9th in total strokes gained, finished second at the Masters. 2015, he was second among all players. He won the Masters. Then he was 7th, finished second at the Masters. Then he was 5th, finished 11th at the Masters. 18th, finished 3rd. But then the last couple of years, of course, have been lean times for one Jordan Spieth. 85th, still finished top 20, 25.
Impressive. He likes the course.
113th, he still finished top 50, made the cut. Now he's 10th, and that was before yesterday. So look out. Yes, if you've got a pool where you have to pick 4 players under a
take
salary
Jordan
cap,
Spieth to be
he's
in.
got to be one of your players. He just has to be, period.
And we'll round out the hour by letting you know approach play is paramount at Augusta National. In the last 5 Masters played in April, the field leader in strokes gained, that's important, in April. The field leader in strokes gained approach has an average finish of 1.8. Of the players with 10 or more rounds at the Masters since 2015, there is one player who has averaged a full stroke or more on the field with his approach play. That's Jordan Spieth. A lot of pressure.
Shucks, Jordan Spieth. There he is again. Isn't it great?
It's impressive, though. Those numbers are gaudy. That's wild.
I'm just so happy. Oh,
I know,
shucks.
I know. I'm just saying he's in a collection of 3 players that you're gonna have to take.
And Michael's back too.
You won't
know?
get any value. You won't get any real value, by the way. I mean, if you're doing DraftKings, you're not gonna get any value on Jordan Spieth. I mean, he's going to be priced accordingly.
But you might need him just to cancel out your opponent and then just be smarter on your next 3 or 4.
Yeah, I guess. You need him to have a come down. You need him to be so elated about the win last week to somehow just brain fog his way into this upcoming.
It's possible. If he misses left a little bit early, he's going to freak out. So
It's hard to let's take a look here, by the way. You want to look at this?
that 8-iron was a little shaky on the 72nd yesterday. What the hell was that shot? And his caddy trying to tell him to hit 3-wood? What are you smoking, pal? You got a 2-stroke lead.
So, by the way, Jordan Spieth is not. Yeah, no, okay. I took a look already. Dustin Johnson is the most highly priced golfer at Augusta, $11,500. You got to keep it under $50,000. Remember, you're picking 6 golfers. John Rahm at 2, DeChambeau at 3, Justin Thomas at 4, Rory McIlroy at 5. That's insane.
No, and the DJ one is really crazy. Now, he could go win it again.
Yes.
That's fine. But he signed up and committed to a tournament on a Tuesday 2 weeks ago, and then he canceled last second. So something's up with him. So I don't know what
You think
the
he's
health
hurt?
issue. Yeah, it could be.
I think
You wouldn't commit to it the same week that you pull out of the event. That doesn't make any sense at all. Something's up.
You think he's back off? You think he fell off the wagon? You think we?
Wagon. It was the staircase.
Yeah. Well, there were some things. He gathered himself, got it together. Obviously, he just continues to compile wins.
The rumors around him don't fit his personality on the course at all.
In any way, shape, or form. The rumors around him are interesting and always have been. Now, I will tell you, the same people that are connected to the tour that have noted a significant change in Dustin Johnson have said that is earnest, that he got it together really from the time he fell down the steps at Augusta to where he is now, which has been nothing but ragingly successful. He's won a bunch of events, including another major, including Augusta National, to cement his place in the Hall of Fame and in golf lore forevermore. You feel like he's going to win another 2 or 3 majors just because he's now kind of kicked down the door a second time. And his game is so prolific. he can do things that just other people cannot do. So I really hope that what we're joking about is not true. I hope that he's fine.
I'm not insinuating it.
Yeah,
I
I mean, I
off
was
the course
just being
thing.
an
I'm just
ass,
saying when you're talking
Maybe
about
he's not healthy. Yeah.
you're going to pay the number one price for the guy that
I wonder
couldn't
if
even
that
follow
gets
through on a
adjusted
commitment.
tonight. That might get adjusted tonight. I have to take a look. Final hour forthcoming. Stay with. At least for today. Thanks for tuning to it. I hope you're well on an absolutely perfect Monday. Gearing up for the finals tonight. I brought this up in hour number one. I used to laugh at talk show hosts when they did this. I do it now, so maybe I should stop. It's just a reflection of how long I've been doing this. I remember when a lot of the guys I kind of grew up listening to, or when I started to get into sports talk radio, some of them were in their 50s, late 40s, as I am now, and they would complain about the start of two things: Monday Night Football being as late as it was, and the NCAA championship game tipping off. And you'll have to correct my memory here, Tom. Maybe I'm wrong. 9:20 p.m. is steep. I feel
there's
like
nothing to correct. 9:20 is steep. Yes.
I feel like it was an 8:30 tip back in the day, or an 8:40 tip or something.
It may have been, but when I was in college and as a young pro, it's irrelevant. If it's before 1 in the morning, it's doable.
It's fine, right?
But in recent
as an
years,
adult,
yeah,
with responsibilities,
and
normal hours, meaning you wake by 6 or 7 at the very least. 9:20 kind of really. We gotta start this at 9:20, do we? Okay. It kind of hits you. Now, I'll be watching because this is the matchup that I wanted. And all of the upsets and everything else that we watched in this tournament, and the tournament being the tournament, produced what ultimately I think everybody, A, if they bet on chalk, we're looking to see, and B, what we wanted to see. I mean, this was the game we wanted to see in the regular season that got called off. This is what we wanted to see a year ago. This is the matchup I wanted, and UCLA almost ruined it, and kudos to UCLA, who became this whole other thing than they were in the regular season in the NCAA tournament, where they proved they weren't a fluke and became an elite team out of nowhere, but they did, which is the oddity of a tournament.
Just keep shooting 60%. I mean, that's fine. Go ahead. No problem.
Absolutely bizarre to watch that play out. By the way, we're online, ESPNTallahassee.com. That's where you're going to listen live via the streaming free always. If you miss portions of the show, we make it easy on you. All 3 hours get posted upon the conclusion of the show. They're on Apple Podcasts, really wherever you get podcasts. If you'd like to send a message along to us, JCS at 979, ESPNradio.com. On Twitter, it's at JCameron Show. Hello, YouTubers, once again, as we reset. And, of course, all guests appear via the Phone Hero hotline. Phone Hero specializes in an iPhone and iPad repair. 2 locations, 2915 Cary Forest Parkway, 833 West Gain Street. Online at PhoneHeroTLH.com. It's a busy, busy week, in the sense that tonight we build up towards the NCAA championship. Great game. I really, really am looking forward to it. In a weird way, you wonder, how can't this be a letdown? I mean, it has to be a letdown. If you stayed up and watched the Gonzaga-UCLA game on Saturday night, and you watched it from, point A to point B, meaning you watched the opening tip to the end of the game, you saw one of the 5 or 6 best games ever played. You got to see one of the greatest games ever played. It was phenomenal. It reminded me of Villanova, North Carolina. It reminded me of a game like that where you're watching riveted, high-level execution in action by both teams with a whole lot of chutzpah.
Yeah, once again, I'm glad that the final 3 to 5 minutes of regulation went the way they did, because I think if there's a flaw in this, if you're arguing amongst the top 5 of who's number 1,
right,
I think the officials carried it a little bit and kept it closer with a couple of 50-50 calls that looked like they were interested in the margin being a little bit tighter.
Yeah.
Block charges, things like that, where I'm like, ooh, okay, so UCLA is going to stay in this thing, because Gonzaga was close to pulling away 2 or 3 times in the second half. A big call or a big moment goes UCLA's way and they stay in it, but it didn't matter because from about the 6-minute mark on,
it was incredible.
The finish was
Body
awesome, and then
blow after
overtime
body
was
blow.
unbelievable too.
Yeah, I just, one problem the tournament illuminates, and it always does, and it does, I feel like it's talked about more this year than in other years. I don't know if that's just my perception, if that's anecdotal because of social media. But it felt like the discrepancy between one game to the next in terms of officiating was so drastic that people can never really get a feel. And one problem, and I think that's true, if you watched the Michigan-Florida State game and then you watched Michigan's next game, two very different looking games about what was allowed to happen in the lane and what wasn't.
Especially for Michigan. Yes,
yeah.
very different experiences.
It shifted dramatically, didn't it? They got to feel a little of what we felt. It was very strange, but that's true in basketball all the time. It is a problematic element of the sport. In particular, college basketball, and we do this a lot. I feel like the NFL and the NBA, where you have the officiating play out in a more consistent manner, where fans may not like the calls or the rules, certain rules, they do see a more consistent application of those rules across the board. Like NBA players, by and large, you watch one NBA game, you're seeing the same in another NBA game. Like calls that are made on a Tuesday night between Denver and Utah are not dissimilar to anything you'd watch between Boston and Indiana the next night. College basketball? Oh, nay. Oh, you might see two totally different games being played out, which are dictated by the officiating crew and their style. And that is very problematic. It's I don't know what they do about it, but it pisses me off to no end. And I think it pisses the average basketball fan off to no end because you really, again, could be watching two different sports.
Yeah, I think one way to fix that immediately would be to add a sixth foul in college because then
you're not such dire circumstances for early foul trouble.
If we can't force college coaches to embrace the fact that playing kids through their second foul in the first half
is legal.
I mean, Jesus, that is the one thing that is left here in this town where I go, okay, so I understand that you want Raekwon Gray to be available down the stretch. The 17 minutes in the first half that he missed are probably more valuable in getting to that stretch than the stretch itself. Just me. Mm-hmm. But if we can't get the coaches to do that, then let's add a foul and let's get it to 6 so that an official can't outright screw the game up from the word go in the first half.
Yeah, and I just think they have to put points of emphasis and have them be unilateral. Like everybody has to understand, we're looking for this, we're not looking for that. Don't get ticky-tacky here. Here's where you can call a charge almost every time, and here's where you can't. I thought actually the call at the end of the game that people got so upset about was the right call. It was a charge.
Oh, charge? That's 100%
It's 100% a charge.
Yes.
It's a great defensive play. You can hate that kid all you want. He's their best player. Timmy is unreal. He is an unreal college basketball player. Scores with both hands, has legitimate post moves. One thing that you watch, when you watch him as a big and then you look at our bigs, you go, well, world's difference. He is so much more skilled than any of our bigs really have been in ages. There's nobody that skilled at Florida State catching the ball on the block with real post moves.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unreal.
Sarge had some, but we're going back a long way to get to Bernard James.
It's really impressive. I mean, that's a guy whose footwork puts him at another level when you watch it.
Watching him with a mutual friend, and he said, this is a guy who clearly understands that this is as good as it's going to get for him. He's a college basketball player.
Yeah.
And he's going to
really
embrace
good one.
every possession of his college basketball career because there might be some money to come.
Oh, he'll make money in the pros, but he's not an elite player. He's not a game changer. He's not anything in the NBA level. He'll be a bench guy. He'll be whatever. He'll make the league, I think, because that kind of size and fundamentals, he's 7 minutes a night, whatever it'll be. He can play a role. But he's a great college basketball player. And the one thing is when they get – so, I mean, I don't want to belabor this point – but when Ngam gets positioned in the post, the thing you're yelling at the TV is, don't throw it to him. Like every time you watch it, and I'm not even trying to be mean, I got so mad, I think it was MJ. I got so mad at MJ when Ngam posted up, I think it was against Michigan, and they fed him the ball. He's got no chance. What are you doing? There's a good chance he's just going to throw it into the crowd or it's going to bounce off his knee. If he doesn't do that, it's going to be some flailing, ridiculous move. He doesn't have a move. So I didn't understand what we were doing. That was like playing 4-on-5. When you watch them play, when you watch Gonzaga play, if he gets it in the post against a smaller defender, that's buckets. That's a bucket. He is going, and he's probably going to get an and one opportunity. That's a different level that they got going on there. That game, though, and let me fast forward to this, and we'll get to tonight's matchup is a great matchup for a lot of reasons. I think it will be a ton of points. Take the over for both teams. I think this is a ton of scoring. Drew will play this fast the way Gonzaga wants to play it. So, and Baylor can really shoot. Mm-hmm. So,
and they feel good about those rims, clearly.
Oh man, listen. I take the over on Baylor. I think I wrote it down here, 77.5. Yep, going over on that. I think we get another one of these great 90-87 type games, and I'm here for it. I think it's awesome. Two very good offensive teams. Should be a lot of fun. That said, the OT game against UCLA. You know, for those of you out there who have young boys in your house or young girls in your house and they like college basketball, I hope you got to enjoy that sequence of events as I did on Saturday, because my oldest son is 13. I just signed him up for the Leonard Hamilton basketball camp. He's all pumped.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
All
He's
right.
going to be going to the Leonard Hamilton.
Meet Coach Ham.
Yep. Going to do it up and players and everything else. So we're doing that this summer, and it's going to be great. But he's taken a real liking to basketball in the last year. And we're all, I joke with you guys all the time on the air, but we're playing one-on-one, and then they play 2v1 on me all the time, him and Clark, his younger brother, and they've got it to where they've figured out how to space me out to where I can't cover, and Clark is now good enough to hit open looks. So my days of dominating are waning. It's a lot of fun. Well, the point would be, he's asked me a lot this past year, both about Florida State basketball, but NCAA basketball, and in particular March Madness, where it's on his radar now, where he's saying, Dad, what do you remember about this? And I go back, I reference this all the time. That is a family event for me. And my mother and my stepfather and I, along with my stepbrothers, we watched this event collectively from the time I think I was 7 or 8 years old. So you're talking about 78, 79 on. And I can remember all of the biggest moments of this tournament, especially Sweet 16s on, where you kind of sat back and, the games were singled out more because they're spread out more. And you could watch, okay, well, tonight we get this at 6 o'clock and then this at 9 o'clock or this at 8 o'clock. We would watch those games, and Georgetown, St. John's, back then it was all Big East we cared about. I mean, it was so great to watch. You had your Dukes and North Carolinas, of course, at the ACC. But, man, watching the Dukes and the St. John's and later on, obviously, of course, Seton Hall and Villanova and all those games, I can remember it like it was yesterday. We had our favorite players, and then those moments, the Duke-Kentucky game, an all-time incredible game, the Laettner moment we were watching together as a family. I remember going upstairs to watch the last minute or two on my mom's and stepdad's bedroom because it was quiet. I didn't want to hear all the noise downstairs. They were bothering me with all their chit-chatting. I went up there to watch it. So Bryce walks out on Saturday night, and it's late. That game went late. And there's about 7 minutes left in the game. And his mother's gone to bed. She's done. She doesn't care. She's asleep. Clark's asleep. Bryce comes out, and he's like, what you doing? And I was just sitting there riveted. I'd watched the whole game. And he goes, has this been good? I said, this is about as good a game as you're going to see. These two teams are playing at an extremely high level. And he says, well, Gonzaga's going to win, right? I go, I don't know. If before the game I would have told you yes, without a doubt, not going to be close, So right when he says it, UCLA hits a tough shot in the lane, and he's kind of...
It's probably one of their post guys with his jump shots that they were remarking on. He doesn't do this.
He never makes
4
these.
in a row.
Yeah, he just kept making them. The lefty just kept making them. So right then it captures him because Gonzaga comes down and scores, and then UCLA comes down, and we've got the very nature of the game and how it played out. The Suggs block and subsequent sequence of retrieval and full court bounce pass dunk.
Yeah, what a pass.
Well, it's dumb. Everything about it. The block is incredible. The outlet, the ability to look up and see the floor and know that I can take 2 dribbles and sling it. It's in stride. It's just dumb. You don't see that level of execution in college basketball all that often. And Bryce got off this chair. He's, whoa. I was like, yeah. That kid can play. I said, he's a freshman. That's ridiculous. I said, Bryce, he's 5 years older than you. He's 5 years older than you. You better get to practicing. That's pretty amazing. So now he's in. And we watched the ending together. We watched that improbable ending. We watched everything that played out, and then the overtime. And I don't know why. I don't know about you. But at 3.3, he's going to get across half court.
Yeah.
And your thought is anything across half court, you got a shot at it.
Oh, the way they moved the ball is a clean look. I felt like it was going to be a clean look. Actually, I thought that was a worse than I envisioned on the inbound.
Yeah, I thought he'd get closer.
The fury of the inbound play, I thought that they would get a clean look from just beyond the arc, like a kick out to the wing or something.
Yeah, something like we remember
not
Luke
a pull-up
Loucks.
runner third court Ty Lawson shot from years ago.
Well, and it's a bank, and it's lucky, but it goes in. At least it's online.
It's online.
It's online. But it's a moment that you'll always remember. That game, we got it. This tournament has had its ups and downs in my mind, the good and the bad. That moment is what we're going to take from, unless tonight's game somehow outdoes it. I can't imagine that it will, but it might. It might, and if it does, we're all better for it. We did get the matchup we wanted. I think it's going to be a great game.
It's got the ingredients to at least be equal to UCLA Gonzaga. But just because you have the ingredients doesn't mean that you're going to have something tasty.
Historically great game. Gonzaga survived the game they had to survive to try to complete the magical run. And I think they get it done tonight in a war. But that's the one.
You know who's been great this tournament? And I don't know if it was a year or two ago or if it's just this year for the first time. Charles Barkley has been fantastic on the desk. When they first did it,
he used to be awful
7-8 years ago.
College basketball.
I mean, he would parachute in, not know a damn. It's like Grant Hill when he called our game with Michigan. You could tell that they've done no research whatsoever. They're just, because of the contract, they're there to do the game.
You still get moments where you can tell he and Kenny Smith and those guys don't watch a ton of college basketball.
Correct, but Chuck captured the moment beautifully between the two games because, after the blood sacrifice of the first game, you're like, oh, this is going to be a double down blood sacrifice Saturday. And then Chuck's like, well, I don't care who wins tonight, probably Gonzaga, but I'd be worried now after what I saw from Baylor. That's scary.
Yeah, that's good.
Like, I would have picked Gonzaga without thinking twice on Monday. After seeing that was good enough to say, oh, wait a minute. There's something real going to happen on Monday, and that's true.
Yeah, it is true. And I think the biggest thing to remember about Baylor is that the COVID break really hurt them. They might have gone undefeated. Baylor was loaded and incredible, and they had the COVID problem. And so, I don't know, I think it seriously disrupted their season. They're really good. They're very, very good. No, this game tonight should be great. I hope it is. It's impossible to live up to the standard of a Saturday night war between Gonzaga and UCLA played out as it did. And I would have not. And kudos to UCLA. It just makes you wonder, though, man. Again, I don't know. I couldn't help but all at once doff my cap and say, amazing run. You guys proved you belonged and all that other stuff. And where the hell were you in the regular season? Yeah, what was going on that you look so bad?
Oh, the Pac-12 was just that good, man.
I guess. I guess. All right, it's spring football, the game this weekend. I'm pumped about it for a lot of reasons. It will be fun. There's something to note here. A couple of things I'll touch on. Want to get to that. Florida State baseball over the weekend. Fantastic. And what a way to close it out. 8-0, ass kicking over North Carolina. Elements of that team are very exciting. And then, lots of elements of that team are very exciting. I think that Florida State baseball team is really good. And I don't care what the record turns out to be during the regular season. They are set up to be a very difficult postseason team. They have a lot of ways they can beat you.
And given the news today, this might be an interesting year, given that sites for both baseball and softball are going to be predetermined, not based upon national seeding, not based upon records. That was known today around lunchtime. It was released for both sports. So Tallahassee's going to have to make a bid. Baton Rouge is going to have to make a bid to the NCAA. Maybe some handshakes under the table. I don't know what's going on.
Baton Rouge will get a yes.
They certainly will. And I think we would because of reputation, not necessarily facility, but whatever.
And we've done a good job of executing whenever the NCAA has tabbed us, yes.
We're certainly one of the best 16 facilities in the country, but that's where regionals and super regionals are going to be predetermined. So that's interesting here. What I'm saying is if, in a typical season, you win 40 games, you're going to be a top seed.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to this year because there isn't a built-in home field advantage.
You just want to be tested. You just want to be tested to the hilt. I wish we played a top 10 team every day. Like every game. Nobody else but top. I go into it 500 having seen the very best pitching, the very best lineup, the very best defensive squad that you could see. And then okay, I'm good. I got this.
A week from tomorrow, Florida's in town. That's going to have a little extra pizzazz to it.
A little juice to it. We got a lot to touch on. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Yeah, I mentioned the Noles closing out North Carolina really quickly. I want to kind of gloss over something I said in the first hour. But when you're trying to close out a series, going error-free helps. And this is where I'm talking about things culminating and coming together for this baseball team. They were back-to-back games in which they didn't commit an error. They won both. Go figure, by the way. Pick up the baseball. Good things happen. Connor Grady, who's been really good, and to have him as a Sunday starter, one walk not from him for this team on Sunday, 7 innings pitched, 3 hits, 10 Ks, a whole lot of suck it. 62 strikes out of your 86 pitches thrown is doing some things. He was amazing. And you get the lead. You never look back. Elijah Cabell hits another one of these prodigious home runs, which if you have not seen one of his home runs, really any of them, but when you see them, they're different. There aren't people who hit home runs like that in college sprinkled throughout the nation. They're very, very few and far between. That bat speed, which has been talked about and marveled at by Mike Martin Jr. since the kid arrived on campus, is on display every time he gets around on one. It's dumb.
He can leave Ameritrade. Not many can, but he can leave Ameritrade with room to spare.
It is dumb. I mean, it is it's a changeup he hits out on the 3-2 pitch yesterday, and the whiplash that kid got for North Carolina. I mean, it's just that sort of don't even turn your head, don't even turn back around. You don't want to see where that lands, sir. That is wrong. But anyhow, I bring him up because he got benched, and the thing about Cabell is, I mean, great, unreal bat speed, clearly a ton of strength. He hits home runs that look like the kinds of home runs, frankly, that Mike Trout hits. I mean, really kind of off the bat, you go, ooh. When it leaves the bat, you're kind of, it's that sound. And speaking of which, we've got one from Ohtani last night, which you'll hear right here. It sounds like this when Elijah Cabell hits a home run.
I saved it for probables.
But you just use it here. It's unreal because it's so applicable. But I feel like, I mean, as much as you can with a metal bat, this is what it sounds like. Ohtani last night hits a ball that, well, it's definitely gone. It's gone the second it leaves the bat. Listen to this sound.
First pitch swinging. Oh, and first pitch crushing! Oh, man!
Hear that again?
First pitch swinging. Oh, and first pitch crushing!
That's a legitimate laugh from Vasgersian. Like he's caught off guard by that. That's a legitimate laugh.
First pitch swinging. Oh, and first pitch.
Oh, my goodness gracious. That's Cabell's home run yesterday on the changeup. But why I bring it up, it's not only a dong worth gazing at, an awe-inspiring dong.
First pitch swinging. Oh, and first pitch crushing!
He hit 2 over the weekend. Elijah has hit 5 home runs in his last 6 games. So you get benched, you cut your hair, and that's all it is? That's what we got to do from here on out? Just bench guys and have them cut their hair, wake them up from their slumber, put them back out there and watch the dongs fly? Okay. I was so mad when he cut his hair, and I think it's because I have hair envy. My man is out here cutting gorgeous flowing locks for what?
The reverse Samson.
Well, apparently to hit balls to the moon and back. So good on you, Elijah Cabell. I think the Vince Smith kid is fun to watch at second base. We'll see as he gets better and better. Okay. All right, Florida State baseball, you have my attention.
If they keep hitting home runs, you can call third base the dong out instead of the dugout, right?
Over there at the dong out.
Yeah.
And they lead the ACC in home runs. Florida State does.
It's a good call from Lulu on the walk-off on Saturday. I was actually driving around town as I heard it leave the park from Nander's bat. So that was a good moment, too. That got it kick-started just in time for the tip-off of
the first basketball.
The Baylor game, which is over in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Grand opening, grand closing.
Oh, no.
Let's switch gears to FSU's spring game. We'll do it in a second. Jeff Cameron, Show 97.9 ESPN Radio. As alluded to earlier, Mike Norvell stating, we're by no means a finished product. I see the proper steps that are going into how we work, into how we try to respond to good and bad situations. This team is definitely getting closer. It's embracing the work that is required. I think the improvements are showing up across the board. You know, I think more than anything, and I've noticed this in his comments, Coach Norvell's comments, he's speaking to you here, guys. I mean, he's letting you know that he knows they're not great, that they're lacking in overall skill and, you know, the guys that change the scoreboard on one play. He knows that they're not very explosive. But what he didn't get to do last year going into the season is what he's getting to do now, and you can tell that he values it because he has seen, if you were to take him at his word, real growth in work ethic and structure and the way players respond to adversity. And I think when we get back to the talking points regarding how you build a program back up, how you get a program to respond to really arriving at its lowest depths in 40 years. I mean, this is the patience that I said I needed to adopt. And this is the mindset I needed to take in when I look at this team, because I was comparing this team, or I had been up until this point, to you know, the good to pretty average teams of, say, 2015, 2016. Those weren't great teams, but there were players on those teams that you're like, okay, that plays anywhere. This guy can play anywhere. And we don't have a lot of those guys that I point to that I would say, yeah, this guy could play in this locker room. Like if he showed up at Clemson's locker room or Alabama's locker room or Georgia's locker room, would they look at him funny, or would they say he's one of us? We didn't have a lot of guys that I've noticed when I go out to practice whose body types and whose overall athleticism flashed to the level where you'd say, yeah, that works, that plays anywhere. We need to get more of those guys. We have 2 or 3, but not a lot. And so collectively, when you gaze upon the practice field, you go, not enough. Need a lot of work. You know, and that's what you end up saying to yourself over and over and over again. And it just becomes this mantra of negativity. At least it does for me. But I think if you're level-headed and you're Coach Norvell, and you know that, hey, it's going to take some time to build back up the talent level to get to where we need it to be, and I haven't really had a fair opportunity to do that because of COVID, I am making headway in the recruiting game. I mean, you're going to have 70-plus kids out here for this spring football game, and a lot of them, some of them in particular, are big, heavy hitters, guys that just getting them to say, yeah, I'll be there is a big deal. It creates a buzz and some momentum. So I think his approach to talking with players seems to be a strength. Now, you know, what they do in today, Randy Shannon coming in, not for nothing, you look at that. Listen, if I'm going to be cynical, I'm going to tell you, okay, well, that's, you know, lifelong Cain. Why are you doing it? Well, I'll tell you why you're doing it. You're doing it because that's a bag man. That's a guy to help in the world of recruiting. That's a guy to get some yeses. That's a guy that could connect you to South Florida. That's a guy, and we're always looking for ways to do that, right? To get guys to help in the recruiting game, because the staff, the on-the-field staff, we didn't think really could make that big of an impact in the state of Florida in recruiting.
And he's not a terrible on-field coach. Just as a head coach, we're very thankful for his time at Miami.
Absolutely.
Extremely thankful for his time at Miami. But as a coordinator or as a
he's
position
all right.
coach,
He's whatever. Yeah,
he'll help as an analyst. He ain't going to hurt you.
He's not going to hurt you. Not going to hurt you. But moreover, I think he's a connection to kids throughout the state. I think he's a connection to high school coaches throughout the state, in particular South Florida. So I get it. You're going to do what you have to do to connect, to expand the overall reach as recruiters. So I get that, and I see where he's trying to build this thing up. In the interim, you do have got to get kids to be on the same page, and mentally and physically, they got to be pulling in the same direction. The embracing of the climb is real. Like, you're calling it the climb for a reason. You're climbing out of something. I mean, you're climbing from the depths. You're trying to raise up. It's implied in the name. Okay, so if everybody's on the same page and they have the right attitude and they're working really, really hard, collectively, they're holding each other accountable, they're doing all the right things to get better, that's the best you can hope to get out of spring, that and the reps that all teams get. I get that, and I'm okay with that. It's it's disconcerting as we go into this game, and I will say this, that not only do we not see a lot of explosiveness, but I hold my breath this Saturday. I'm going to be holding my breath because I really don't care if they look great or not. It'd be great if they did. It'd be nice to win over whomever it is that shows up from a crowd standpoint. I don't know how many people they're expecting, but hopefully they put on a great show. I mean, that's better than the alternative, obviously, but I'm less concerned personally with that. I'm much more concerned, do they get out of this unscathed from an injury standpoint, knock on wood, as I talk about it aloud, because to me, Tom, when you go through each segment group, you realize just how thin they are. Like, your starters are good enough in a lot of areas against the middling teams of the ACC. They're good enough. We've done this a lot with the offensive line. They're good enough. They're making progress. They're getting better. But a guy goes down or two, and you've got real problems in terms of drop-off. And I think that's true of a lot of segments on this football team. The defensive line being the biggest.
It totally is. It totally is. But I also think, since it's been so long, 5-6 years, since we've seen a group that's together, offense, defense, within the segment groups, a group that plays for one another with consistency. It's happened in a random weekend. Everybody loved each other against North Carolina last year. But, how about the roadie to Louisville? How about the roadie to NC State? How about Georgia Tech?
They weren't really prepared for that?
No, well, and they didn't look like they enjoyed playing with one another. But if you have a group that enjoys to do that you can see, because this program is now opening the doors more and more. They're doing a video series for the boosters. They're allowing the media in. If you can see they're doing the work, they play hard for one another and for their coach, it's easy to root for that kind of a group when you know they're not good enough, especially in a time in college football where you have the oligarchy. We're not one of those. We're not one of the haves right now. So it's not like you're missing out on anything. Like, you're not missing out on this opportunity to punch a ticket to the playoff because the ACC is up for grabs. That's not where we are right now. I'd like to be where we need to go, but since we're stuck here, I think it's a little bit easier in this era of college football to say, all right, we're not at that level. Let's just get to the top of our level before we can go to the next step. There's a little bit of freedom in that.
I think there is, and I think that if you go into it with the proper mindset and outlook like you're describing, that you can watch what, in our minds, collectively, based on Florida State's illustrious history, is a subpar product. You can do so knowing that this is going to be a rewarding sort of stretch over the next 3 years to be a part of. If you see it that way, it reminds you to keep an eye out for the incremental gains, the steps forward that on the surface don't lead to more wins, don't seem like they're automatically going to translate to 9 wins or something that you would prefer, but long-term do help aid that process, expedite that process even. Yeah, man, that's what you're going to have to look for. And also along the way, there'll be diamonds in the rough. There'll be kids that take big steps forward, especially if they're doing all the right things. If they're disciplined with their diet and their weightlifting and their attention to detail and their focus day to day, there are kids that will take big leaps forward and surprise you. They have to continue to collect better players.
I think you would be a hell of a lot more excited if you're looking at the defensive coaching staff. And if you felt as confident about their acumen to coordinate things as you do about the offensive staff. I'm speaking for you here, but I think that you have a belief that Norvell, Dillingham, et cetera.
It's a good combo.
That's a good combo. Atkins. That's a good staff that's going to put us in a position to be successful with lesser thans. If you felt the exact same way about the defensive staff, I think you'd be downright excited for this year.
Maybe. I still would note that they don't have good enough players or a depth of good enough players.
But those are all of the ingredients to steal a game or two that you shouldn't. I'm not talking about Clemson, but I'm just talking about, a game or two where you're a dog on the road.
Tough
or something.
Weekend for Clemson.
It was
tragic to see that.
It was a tough weekend. Yes.
Tough.
They're going to need about 6 more of those weekends for it to really impact them, but
you never know.
You never know, I suppose. What are you, Wilfred Brimley? You calling ahead or something?
Let's do probables, my friend. Let's cue it up.
It's time for, how you say, with the pitching, probables?
Nice. Game going on right now between the Blue Jays and the Rangers. If you're interested, your friend Steven Matz with the Jays. I haven't checked in.
Great friend.
Mike Fultonevich. I wasn't going to miss a chance to say it.
Ooh, precipitous drop-off for that guy.
For the Rangers. Royals, Indians also happening right now. Danny Duffy, Logan Allen. But tonight, when you get home, like right now, like when you sit down with your family and you say, let's watch a little baseball together, you might say to yourself, let's watch the 3-0 Orioles, who lay a stomping on Boston over the week. And the Yankees, unfortunately, under 500. Looks like it's a wash for the Yankees. They should shut it down. Play the young guys. Call everybody up. Bunch of bums. Sorry. Jorge Lopez going for the Orioles. Jordan Montgomery going for the Yankees. Impotent Yankees. Pirates, Reds tonight. Dude named JT Brubaker is starting for the Pirates. Jesus.
That sounds like the fill-in host on like the match game or something.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. JT Brubaker filling in. Here's the problem with JT Brubaker. A, it's what are we doing here? But this spring he gave up 4 home runs on the 12 hits that he gave up in spring baseball. So they tend to see the ball out of his hand pretty well. We'll see if the Reds, who are on fire offensively, do that this evening. Jose De Leon going to pitch for the Reds. Cards, Marlins. Daniel Ponce de Leon. Trevor Rogers going for the Marlins. Let's go Fish.
Man, Ponce de Leon's on the wrong team. He should most certainly be a member of the Marlins.
Here you go, buddy. Opening day for your New York
I was waiting for
Mets.
it. Woo!
Traveling to the Phillies, who told the Braves,
My goodness.
limber up.
Some sad voices on the radio this weekend here.
Limber up, Atlanta. Mets will throw, I take it to beer, Jacob deGrom.
Good choice, New York.
He's a pretty good player. Trying to win his third, is it his third Cy Young in 4 years?
That would be correct. Yeah.
Doing
He had a
some-
bad final start last year, or he might have snuck one out last year.
Matt Moore going for the Phillies.
I think we're 7 games under 500 in his last 5 years as our pitch.
Crazy. Director Matthew, are you excited about Matt Moore, who pitched in Japan last year?
Más o menos. He says, I'm not so sure. Less is more.
Michael Wacha is going to start for the Rays tonight. See, this reminds you that you haven't watched baseball in a while. You're like, oh, Michael Wacha.
He pitched for us last year.
I know.
Jeez.
Yeah. He'll pitch for the Rays. Boston will throw Nick Pivetta. They desperately need Nick Pivetta to show up. That was a disgusting showing over the weekend from Boston. Brewers will take on the Cubs. Brett Anderson going against Trevor Williams.
He's still pitching.
Yeah. He's, let's see.
Talking about Brett.
Yeah, I know. He had a blister all of last year on his finger. Pitchers with blisters, man, they tend to blister up on the regular. You get a blister, like if you got a starting pitcher, it's like hamstring troubles with receivers and running backs. If they start complaining about a hamstring issue, just throw your hands to the sky because he's going to suck the rest of the year. You can't trust anything.
Brett, we got you slated for Friday against the Dodgers. Ooh, my blister.
Blister.
I got a blister.
It's acted up. Astros, Angels, Luis Garcia, Jose Quintana. That creep can roll, man. Dodgers, A's, Dustin May, Frankie Montas. Giants, Padres. Did you see our boy, Buster Posey, going yard left and right?
Yeah, at least 2, right?
Mm-hmm. Anthony DeScalfini going for the Giants, and Adrian Morejon going for the Padres. That's how you say it. Morejon. It's weird. Makes you uncomfortable when you're next to somebody.
It does. It's a little. I don't like that in my ears. Taking the headset off.
White Sox, Mariners, Carlos Rodon, Justice Sheffield, Drew Smiley will pitch for the Braves tonight. Oh, postponed. Never mind. Nats are still kissing each other. Tough times. Good work out of you. Good work, Matthew. Be well, everybody. Have a great evening.